Before I get into the thrust of my remarks, I want to just mention to you what I think many of you already know, and that just yesterday, Bob Mueller completed his investigation and submitted his report to the Attorney General. Now, I don't know what's in that report, but I do know that Mueller wound up indicting 34 people, including 6 Trump campaign officials. I also know that it is absolutely imperative that the Trump administration make that full report public. Nobody, including the President of the United States, especially this president, is above the law. Today we begin our campaign here in California. Yesterday we had a great rally in San Diego. Tomorrow we head to San Francisco. And as I look around this enormous crowd, I think not only are we going to win California, we're going to win the Democratic nomination. And let me say something. Like every member of the U.S. Congress, I have an enormous ego. And I am excited and gratified to hear Bernie. But let me say this. It is not me, it is us. And the reason for that, it's not that it's just a nice sounding phrase and maybe a good bumper sticker. What it is about is the understanding, and I think I'm the only candidate who will tell you this, that no president, not the most well-intentioned or honest, can do it alone. The powers that be, the powerful special interests on Wall Street and in the insurance companies and the drug companies and the military-industrial complex and the fossil fuel industry. These people have so much power that the only way we defeat them is when millions of people stand up and say loudly and clearly, change is going to come. So what this campaign is about is winning the Democratic nomination. It is about defeating Donald Trump, the most dangerous president in American history. But it is also about transforming our government and our economy and creating a system that works for all of us, not just the 1%. And today I want to welcome you to a campaign which says with confidence, with optimism, and with love that the underlying principles of our government will not be greed, will not be kleptocracy, will not be hatred or lies. The underlying principles of our government will not be racism, not be sexism, not be xenophobia, not be homophobia, or religious bigotry. Brothers and sisters, those anti-American sentiments are going to end, and end soon. The principles of our government, what we believe in, will be based on justice, economic justice, social justice, racial justice, and environmental justice. Now, Donald Trump and his friends want to divide us up, divide this country up, based on the color of our skin, our gender, based on where we were born, based on our religion or our sexual orientation. What this campaign is about, and what our government is about, is exactly the opposite. We are going to bring our people together. Black and white and Latino, Asian American, Native American, men and women, gay and straight, native born and immigrant. And let me be very clear in telling you what justice means to me. It means that we will not sit idly by and allow this country to move forward into an oligarchic form of society. We will not accept three wealthy people owning more wealth than the bottom half of American society. We will not accept a handful of billionaires controlling the economic and political life of this nation. At a time of massive income and wealth inequality, we will not accept the fact that more than 20% of American children live in poverty. Not acceptable. We will not accept the fact that veterans, men and women who have put their lives on the line to defend us, are sleeping out in the streets. And we will not accept the fact that we have 30 million Americans who have no health insurance, and even more who are underinsured. Justice means that we will no longer accept 46% of all new income going into the pockets of the 1%, while at the same time, in California and in Vermont and all over this country, you got workers who are forced to work 2 or 3 jobs just to take care of their families. We will not accept a moment in history when the very rich get richer, yet half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck, scared to death that if the car breaks down, they can't get to work. And if they can't get to work, they lose their job. And if they lose their job, they cannot feed their kids. That is not acceptable to us. And when we talk about justice, we're going to end a situation where the CEOs of large corporations earn over 300 times what their workers make, while at the same time over 100,000 people in California are homeless, and so many of our people throughout this country are living in despair, have given up hope that for the 3rd straight year life expectancy in America is actually in decline. We're going to change that. And when we talk about justice, we're going to end the absurdity of 25 hedge fund managers making more money, twice as much money, as all of the kindergarten teachers in this country. And when we talk about injustice, we not only talk about the national disparities that exist between the very rich and everybody else, we are going to focus and deal with racial injustice as well. It is not acceptable to me that black families in America today have 1/10 the wealth that white families have. It is not acceptable that the infant mortality rate for black women is 2.5 times what it is for white women. It is not acceptable that we still have redlining, preventing African American families from getting the housing that they need. That black businesses cannot get the loans they need at affordable rates, and that racism continues to exist within our criminal justice system. So when we talk about justice, we mean ending institutional racism in all of its ugly forms. And when we talk about justice and decency, it also means doing everything we can to end the growing tribalism and bigotry we are seeing in this country and around the world. Since Trump has been president, we have seen a significant increase in hate crimes, crimes against the African American community, against the Jewish community, against the gay community, against immigrants, and against the Muslim community. And let's be clear, this is not just an American phenomenon. It's taking place throughout the world. We were all shocked and disgusted by the mass killings last week of 50 Muslims in a mosque in New Zealand. This morning, I had the opportunity to meet with members of the Muslim community at the Islamic Center of Southern California. And this is a promise I made to them, and I make to you, and I make to every American. As President of the United States, I will not have kind words to say about authoritarian leaders around the world who espouse bigotry and hatred. Together, we will once again make the United States the leader in the world in the fight for democracy and human rights, in the fight to bring the world together around a sense of common humanity, around justice and dignity. And let me say a word to the young people of our country. At a moment in history where we are seeing a huge explosion in technology and huge increases in worker productivity, we will no longer accept a situation in which the younger generation will have a lower standard of living than their parents. Not acceptable. I have 4 kids and 7 grandchildren. Downward mobility is not acceptable to me. We are going up, not down. And brothers and sisters, our fight is not only for economic justice, it is for political justice. Together, we are going to create a political system which is based on the democratic principle of one person, one vote, and end a corrupt system which allows billionaires to buy elections. Yes, together we are going to overturn Citizens United. Yes, we are going to end voter suppression. And yes, we're going to move toward public funding of elections so that anyone who wants to run for office can do so without being dependent on billionaires. As many of you will recall, when we first launched our campaign back in 2015, very few people took that campaign seriously. I think when we began, we made page 19 of the New York Times. That's a paper out east, by the way. And the ideas that we talked about were considered by establishment politicians and mainstream media as being too radical, too extreme, ideas that they said people of America would never support. Raising the minimum wage to a living wage. Oh, much too radical. Guaranteeing health care to all people as a right. Can't happen in America, too radical. Creating up to 15 million jobs by rebuilding our crumbling infrastructure with $1 trillion investment, too radical. And imagine combating climate change aggressively to save the planet, too radical. Oh, and here's another one. Oh my God, this will never happen. Legalizing marijuana. Oh my God, too radical. Reforming our broken criminal justice and immigration systems. Too radical. Not having a super PAC and being dependent on millionaires to get elected, too radical. And listen to this one, ending the power of super delegates at the Democratic National Convention. Unheard of, couldn't happen. Too radical. Well, brothers and sisters, a funny thing has happened over the last couple of years. Turns out that justice is not too radical an idea for the American people. In 2016, we won victories in 22 states around the country. We won over 13 million votes, over 1,700 delegates at the Democratic Convention. and most importantly, for the future of this country. During that campaign, we won more votes from young people, Black and white and Latino, Asian American, Native Americans, more votes from young people than Clinton and Trump combined. And by the way, as you know, those ideas that we talked about 4 years ago that seemed so far out, seemed so radical, seemed so extreme, well, guess what? They are now supported in every case by a majority of the American people. And they have overwhelming support from Democrats and independents. And they are ideas that Democratic candidates from school board to president now support. We have come a long way in the last few years. Now, our job is to complete the revolution we began. Our job now is to turn our progressive agenda and our vision for America into reality. Franklin Delano Roosevelt was one of the great presidents in American history, and you all know he came to office in the midst of incredibly difficult times, a mass depression, 25% people unemployed, and then he had to lead the effort in World War II, taking on Nazism and fascism. In 1944, at the end of his presidency, he gave a State of the Union speech which was not widely reported. But what he said in that speech was profound and what motivates me here with you today. And what he said is that our Constitution is a great document. It guarantees political freedoms, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, freedom of the press, etc. Very, very important in a democratic society. But what he also said is that our Constitution does not guarantee economic rights. That the right to a decent job, the right to health care, the right to education is a human right. What FDR said so many decades ago was true then, and it is true now. And that is why today we say to the private insurance companies, we say that whether you like it or not, the United States will join every other major country on earth and guarantee health care to all people as a right. Health care is a right for human beings, not a privilege. It is not a radical idea to say that if you get sick, you can go to the doctor. It is not a radical idea to say that if you end up, God forbid, in a hospital, you can come out of that hospital without your family going bankrupt. Brothers and sisters, we will no longer accept a dysfunctional healthcare system in which we spend twice as much per capita on healthcare as do the people of any other country, and yet we have lower life expectancies and worse healthcare outcomes. Here's a radical idea. You ready for a radical idea? All right, this looks like a radical audience. Here it is. Are you ready? All right. The goal of healthcare is to provide quality care to all, not to have insurance companies make billions of dollars a year off our sickness. Here is what a dysfunctional healthcare system looks like. In 2017, the top 65 healthcare CEOs made $1.7 billion in compensation. 30 million people, no health insurance, even more, including many of you, underinsured with high deductibles and high co-payments. And this system allows $1.7 billion in compensation for the top 65 executives, including $83 million for the guy who is head of United Healthcare. So here is another radical idea, and that is we need a healthcare system that does not make executives rich, but invests in disease prevention, invest in doctors and in nurses, invest in dentists, and in rural health clinics. We want a healthcare system in which every American in any section of this country can walk into a doctor's office when he or she needs. So that means, and I say this looking right into the insurance industry, I know that you're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to fight us. But we are going to win, and we are going to pass a Medicare for All single-payer program. Never forget, healthcare is a human right, not a privilege. And today we say to the allies of the insurance industry, and that is the pharmaceutical industry, we say loudly and clearly that we are going to end your outrageous greed, which forces the American people to pay, by far, the highest prices in the world for the prescription drugs they need. You want to hear what another example of a dysfunctional healthcare system? Last year, 5 major drug companies made over $50 billion in profit. Meanwhile, 1 out of 5 Americans cannot afford to fill the prescriptions their doctors write. How insane is that? So today we say to the drug companies, we know how much money you have. We know you spent $130 million here in California a few years ago to defeat a ballot item. We know that. But we are going to take on your greed. We are going to significantly lower the cost of prescription drugs in this country. And today, we say to Walmart and we say to other low-wage employers in this country, people need a decent income to survive and live with dignity. Stop paying your employees starvation wages. Nobody who works 40 hours a week in America should be forced to live in poverty. So together, whether Walmart and the other low-wage employers like it or not, we're going to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, $15 an hour. And importantly, we are going to make it easier for workers to join unions. We need to grow the trade union movement in this country. Now, 4 years ago, when we talked about raising that minimum wage to $15 an hour, it seemed like an impossible dream. Well, I am happy to tell you that 5 states in this country, including California, have already raised that minimum wage. I am happy to tell you that we have pressured Amazon and Disney to raise their minimum wage to $15 an hour. And I am very proud to tell you that a couple of weeks ago, the U.S. Congressional Committee on Labor and Education reported out a bill that I believe will soon pass the House of Representatives to raise the federal minimum wage from a starvation wage of $7.25 to $15 an hour. Now, workers all over this country, they got enough to worry about with low wages. They got enough to worry about with the skyrocketing cost of health care and prescription drugs. But there's something else that many people are worried about, and that is what artificial intelligence and robotics is going to do in this economy. So we say to corporate America that the function of artificial intelligence and robotics must be to improve the standard of working people in this country, not throw them out on the streets. And today we say to the parents in this country, we say that you know and I know and everybody here knows that the most important years of human development are 0 through 4. But today we have a dysfunctional child care system, a system in which parents cannot afford decent care for their kids, a system in which child care workers are earning starvation wages. Together, we're going to stand with the little children of this country, universal child care. I want every parent in this country to be able to go to work and know that their kid is in high quality, affordable child care. And today we say to the young people of this country, we want you to get the best education you can, regardless of your income. This is not rocket science. In order to do well in a competitive global economy, we need the best educated workforce in the world. We used to, in America, have that workforce. We no longer do. And that is why we're going to do 2 fundamental things. Number 1, we are going to make public colleges and universities tuition free. A few years ago, people thought that was a radical idea. Not anymore. Not anymore. And the second thing we're going to do, and let me ask you a question. How many of you are dealing with student debt in this country? Well, it seems to me that tens of millions of Americans should not be punished because they tried to get a good education. At the very least, we are going to substantially lower student debt. Maybe we'll be able to eliminate that debt altogether. It is insane. It is insane and not in the best interest of this country that we have so many people leaving school, 50, 100,000, go to medical school, $300,000-400,000 in debt. I want everybody in this country who wants a higher education to be able to do so and not have to pay off debt for decades. We're going to change that. And today, we say to the senior citizens in California and across this country, we don't talk about this too much, but in Vermont and here and all America, all around America, you got seniors who are trying to get by on $12,000, $13,000, $14,000 Social Security. Can you imagine that? Imagine being 80, 90 years of age and trying to get by on $12,000, $13,000 Social Security. These are the people who raised us. These are the people who built this country. Now, in terms of Social Security, my Republican colleagues in Congress, they want to cut Social Security. Well, we got some bad news for them. We are not going to cut Social Security. We're going to raise Social Security benefits. Now, you know, and I know that virtually every day, Donald Trump is an embarrassment for us and for much of the world. It is not just that he is a pathological liar. It's not just that he is a racist and a sexist and a xenophobe. It's not just that he says something today and changes his mind tomorrow. It's not just that he told the American people one thing in the campaign and then does something completely different as president. But it is the fact that we today have an administration that very dangerously rejects science. So today we say to Trump and his allies in the fossil fuel industry, climate change is not a hoax. Climate change is a dangerous reality for this country and for the entire planet. And today we say to the fossil fuel industry, which lies and lies and lies, we are, whether you like it or not, fossil fuel industry, we are going to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. And when we do that, when we weatherize our homes and our buildings, when we rebuild our rail system, when we have an energy efficient transportation system, when we move aggressively into wind, solar, and other sustainable technologies, we're going to create millions of good paying jobs doing that. And today, we say to the prison industrial complex that we are sick and tired of having more people in jail than any other country on earth. Instead of spending $80 billion a year locking up fellow Americans, our administration is going to invest in young people. We're going to invest in jobs and education, not jails and incarceration. Our job is to get people out of jail, not into jail. And when we talk about criminal justice reform, we are talking, among other things, about ending private prisons and detention centers. No more profiting from locking up fellow Americans. And when we talk about criminal justice reform, we are talking about ending the so-called war on drugs. Too many people's lives have been destroyed. Too many people have not been able to get jobs because they had criminal records for possession of marijuana. We're going to end the war on drugs. And when we talk about real criminal justice reform, I want all of you to know something that not a lot of people know, that right now, today, as we speak, there are hundreds of thousands of Americans in jail. Their crime is that they are poor and cannot afford cash bail. We're going to end that cash bail system. And by the way, when we talk about criminal justice reform, it means not just that we're not going to be locking up people for nonviolent crimes or giving criminal records for people who possess marijuana. It is a little bit absurd that tens of thousands of people every year get records for smoking marijuana, but not one CEO on Wall Street went to jail for helping to destroy the American economy through their illegal activities. Criminal justice system means justice for all, even if you're a Wall Street CEO. And today, we say loudly and clearly that instead of demonizing the undocumented immigrants in this country, we are going to pass comprehensive immigration reform and provide a path toward citizenship. We are going to provide legal status to the 1.8 million young people eligible for the DACA program. And we are going to develop a border policy for those who seek asylum that is humane and compassionate. The United States must never be about tearing little babies from the arms of their mothers. And today we say to the military-industrial complex that we will not continue to spend more money on the military than the next 10 nations combined. We are going to invest in affordable housing. We're going to invest in public education. We are not going to invest in never-ending wars. And today we say to the 1% and to the large profitable corporations in this country, people who have never had it so good, that under a Bernie Sanders administration, we are going to end the massive tax breaks and loopholes that they currently enjoy. Now, again, here is another absurdity within our current system. Amazon Corporation is one of the largest, the most profitable corporations in America. It is owned by the wealthiest man in America. Anybody here know how much Amazon paid in federal income taxes last year? And it's not just Amazon, it's Netflix, it's General Motors, it's many other major corporations. So today, we say to the large corporations who make billions and to the 1% that you are going to start paying your fair share of taxes. We're going to end austerity for working families and bring a little austerity to the 1%. Brothers and sisters, we are going to defeat Donald Trump, and I'll tell you how we're going to do that. We're not going to do it because I am a billionaire or because we have a super PAC. Ain't the case. We're going to win this election because we are going to put together the strongest grassroots movement in the history of American politics. All across this country, we are going to see grassroots activity, and I am happy to tell you that in the first month of our campaign, we have well over 1 million people who have signed up to get to work and volunteer on this campaign. And I know something about grassroots politics because that's what I've been doing my entire political life. I kind of do it naturally because, you know, I don't come from a super wealthy family like Donald Trump, a family which gave him millions of dollars to build luxury skyscrapers, casinos, and country clubs. My brother and I did not go to some elite private school. We were educated in public schools. I did not come from a family which at the age of 3 gave me an allowance of $200,000 a year. As I recall, my allowance was 25 cents a week. Now, all of you will recall that just a few months ago, Donald Trump boasted, literally boasted, about shutting down the government and leaving some 800,000 federal employees without income to pay their bills. Now, I guess that when you are a billionaire, you may not know that people struggle every month to pay the mortgage, to pay the health care bills, to turn the lights on, to put gas in the car. I guess if you are a billionaire like Trump, you don't know that half of America is living paycheck to paycheck. Well, I know that because my family lived paycheck to paycheck. I know where I come from, and that is something I will never forget. And trust me, I will never shut down the federal government. During the next couple of months, you're going to be hearing from a number of candidates about their ideas. So I wanted to be as clear as I can be, as specific as I can be, what I believe we together should be doing in the White House. When we get to the White House together, we are going to enact a federal jobs guarantee. There is more than enough work to be done in this country, from child care to education to infrastructure to climate change to health care. Every American who has the ability to work will have a job at decent pay. When we are in the White House, we are going to end the decline of rural America, but we will also attack urban gentrification. Here in California, you have some 130,000 people tonight who will be homeless, and you got God knows how many people who are paying 40, 50, 60% of their limited incomes for housing. We're going to put people to work building the affordable housing that the American people deserve. Brothers and sisters, when we together are in the White House, we are finally going to move aggressively to end the epidemic of gun violence in this country. As some of you may have noticed, in New Zealand, as a result of that terrible shooting, they banned assault weapons. That's a good idea. We should do that here. When we together are in the White House, we are going to protect a woman's right to control her own body. You know, I always find it amazing that some of my conservative colleagues, they say, get the government out of our lives. We hate big government. But if you are a woman, apparently it's okay for the federal government, the local government, the state government to tell you what to do with your body. We're going to change that. Brothers and sisters, this campaign is about winning the nomination, it's about defeating Trump, but it's about something more than that. And I need your help, not just now, and not just in the general election. I need your help so that we can fundamentally transform this country and take on the powerful special interest who today control so much of our economic and political life. So the bad news is, I need you now, but I'm going to need you after the election. And let me be very clear. Let me name the names so you know what I'm talking about. When we talk about powerful special interests, we are talking about Wall Street. We are talking about 6 financial institutions, 6 that have assets equivalent to 54% of the GDP of this country. Together, we are going to break those huge banks up. And when we talk about taking on powerful special interests, we're talking about taking on the insurance companies and the drug companies. If we are going to go forward for a Medicare for all single-payer program, if we're going to go forward in lowering the cost of prescription drugs, we're going to have to stand up and take those entities on. And we're talking about agribusiness, we're talking about the prison industrial complex, we're talking about the fossil fuel industry, we're talking about the special interests to run this country. Now, brothers and sisters, the truth is that these powerful special interests not only have an enormous amount of power, they have unlimited amounts of money, and they have a lot of input into what goes on in the media. So taking them on, let's be clear, is not going to be easy. But this is what I believe from the bottom of my heart. If we stand together, if we do not allow Trump and his friends to divide us up, if we come together as black and white and Latino, Native American and Asian American, if we come together as gay and straight, men and women, native-born and immigrant, if we come together as East and West, North and South, rural and urban, if we come together as one people, we understand that although they have the wealth and the power, at the end of the day, they are the 1%. We are the 99%. And I may not be too good at arithmetic, but 99% is a hell of a lot more people than 1%. So that's what it is about. What this campaign is about is thinking big, not small. We have already helped transform political thinking in this country over the last 4 years, and we've got to continue to do so. This is the wealthiest country in the history of the world. People should not be sleeping out in the streets. People should not be leaving college deeply in debt. Our infrastructure should not be crumbling. 30 million people should not be without health insurance. Think big, not small. Don't let them divide us up. That is what demagogues always do. So I believe from the bottom of my heart that when we stand together, when we keep our eyes on the prize, when we know where we are going in creating a government and an economy that works for all of us, when we go forward together, nothing is going to stop us. So Los Angeles, thank you for coming out today. Let's go forward together. Thank you.